Good evening, good Wednesday, good midweek. Greetings to the 12 tribes that are scattered into the four corners of the earth according to Bible prophecy and are awaiting the return of Messiah Yahushua, of the chosen people, the true nation of Israel that is scattered throughout the earth. Greetings to you. Greetings also to those who are not of the bloodline, but are grafted into the nation that is scattered through the faith of our wisdom and righteousness, who is Messiah Yahushua. Greetings. Blessings upon those that are working in the healthcare field and in first responders, trying every day to save lives. Blessings upon those that pick up garbage for us to keep our streets and sidewalks clean. Blessings also upon those that make deliveries for our convenience, and double blessings on the people, the men and women that are out here trying to save, deliver, help, rescue toddlers, babies, children, teenagers, men and women from prostitution and child prostitution and pornography and child pornography, from human trafficking and sex slavery, from pedophilia and child molestation. They just caught another ex-priest here in Virginia who had been busted molesting children during his time as a priest. 69 years old. Apparently his victims are grown, found out where he was, and exposed him. Blessings upon those victims and curses upon that man and all the perverts like him. Finally, blessings upon the homeless. 600,000 men, women, and children in the streets tonight, and millions around the world in worse conditions. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. Greetings to those in the chat. Tonight's subject, what we usually do on Wednesday, we deal with current events and current situations going on that involve Bible prophecy. First off, let's look at Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6. We're living in a time in Earth's history, as we know, we're in the last few years of the existence of this world system that we are now in. And we know that because it is the last few years of that system, things are going to get and are getting much more hectic, much more intense in all areas of life. In Ephesians chapter 6, it warns us about this and tells us where our fight really is. Ephesians chapter 6, beginning at verse 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the master and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yah, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Principalities, powers, things that you can't really grab, and yet they're in control. And it says the wiles of the devil, which showing us, and spiritual wickedness in high places, was showing us that above all of the powers that are ruling the earth is the spirit of Asatan. He is behind everything they're doing, wouldn't matter what it is. Okay, so that's the basis that we need to understand as we're dealing with the last events of this history of this system that we're in, and all of the things that's going to go with that, that are going with that. Look at this. I pulled it. I got I guess a show and tell for y'all today. You see this? You know what this is, right? This is the US dollar bill. The US dollar bill. You can see it's made of paper. It's basically a piece of paper. And it says on it, on this piece of paper, it says, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. And you can also see, obviously, the pyramid, the Egyptian pyramid from the Hamites, with the all-seeing eye on it. It's pretty obvious there. Now, we know that the people that create this are not Hamites. They're children of Yafet, which also shows us that they have stolen all of their beliefs, all of their system from past civilizations. Okay? Why did I show you that? Because you see, the enemy, the devil, he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about this. This doesn't matter to him. He's a being that has powers that are beyond dollars. But he knows what he has as subjects care. Why is that? We know to be, well, I'm not even going to read it. What did he promise Eve? You shall be as gods. What does it mean to be God, to be the Most High? What does that mean? Well, let's look at Psalms 62. Psalm 62. One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 62. I remember when I first, really consciously read it, blew me away. I was a young man, basically just got out of boyhood into young manhood. But when you look at Psalm 62, it tells you what the enemy is talking about in terms of telling Eve she could be a god. Psalm 62, I'm going to read verse 1. I'm going to start at verse 1 and go down to the 12 verses. Verse 11 is what we're dealing with today, but let's look at verse 1. Let's start at verse 1. Truly my soul waiteth upon the Most High. From him cometh my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. How long will ye imagine mischief against a man? Ye shall be slain, all of you. As a bowing wall shall ye be, as a tottering fence. They only consult to cast him down from his excellency. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. My soul, wait thou only upon Yah, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. In Yah is my salvation and my glory. The rock of my strength and my refuge is in Yah. Trust in him at all times, ye people. Pour out your heart before him. Yah is a refuge for us. Surely men of low degree are vanity, and men of high degree are a lie. To be laid in the balance, they are altogether lighter than vanity. Trust not in oppression. Become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. Watch this part. Yah have spoken once. Twice have I heard this, that power belongeth unto Yah. Also unto thee, O Master, belongeth mercy, for thou renderest to every man according to his work. So what does it mean in the devil's sight to be a god? It means you have power. Power. Power is an important thing in this earth. And part of obtaining power is controlling this here. Controlling this here. Okay? And on the earth, part of controlling that and gaining power, you have to be greedy. Because if you have power over people or you take it, that means you're greedy. You must be in control. Okay? Okay, so that's a basis for our understanding of what we get ready to get into today. The abomination that makes desolation. Okay, now, the Bible shows us everything. I'm going to show you from the word everything we're getting ready to talk about here. But one of the things we understand in the Bible is that history repeats itself. History repeats itself. So that Solomon says in Ecclesiastes, in fact, let's take a look at that. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes 1. Going to begin at, I'm going to basically it's verse 9. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. I'm going to start at verse 9 and go down to verse 11. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It has been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of the things that are to come with those that shall come after. All things that happen have already happened and will repeat themselves. The only thing is, as we're getting closer to the end of this war, this spiritual war that we're in, the things that are being repeated are happening with more intensity, much more intensity. So right now, for example, there's things at all-time highs or lows, depending on how you look at it. For example, there is the wealth gap between the very rich in the United States, who is the leading economic nation, and the very poor has never been wider. Right now, 10% of the population of the United States controls 70% of the wealth of the United States. And the bottom 50% or the bottom half of the population, 150 million people in the United States, control 1% of the wealth. Isn't that amazing? So 10% of the people of the US control 70% of the wealth of the country. And 50% of the people only control 1% of the wealth of the country. And that difference is continuing to get bigger. Okay? Right now, you have situations where, economically speaking, there's more power in banks than in any time in history. The banking and financial industry has more power than any time in history. What does this create, though? What are you seeing as a result of this? You have haves and you have have-nots. And so as a result of haves and have-nots, with such a great difference in opportunity, a great difference in wealth, you're seeing more crime. People becoming desperate. They're stealing catalytic converters. They're robbing stores of stuff. They're stabbing and killing each other for whatever they could get. For a cell phone, people have been murdered. They're carjackings. You know, you're going to see more of these things because of that difference in wealth. Okay. And whenever the wealthy and powerful find themselves in trouble, you see, because as I mentioned before, if left to themselves, the powers of this US with the devil at their head would destroy themselves. The greed and the lust for power would end up destroying itself. It's just the destiny of that spirit. But every time they get themselves in some sort of trouble, what do? They print more money. They can print as much as they want of this. And you say, well, somebody might say, well, isn't that going to cause like what they call inflation because there's so many dollars out there? Yeah. But what ends up happening, the way this situation is set up, brethren, is the most powerful people control corporations. And corporations are publicly owned. What does that mean? That means like you can buy shares in Coca-Cola or IBM or Microsoft, and you can own a piece of it. And the most powerful people own the biggest pieces of these companies. And the more of these dollars that's printed out there, no matter how bad they manage it, the shares, the value of those corporations increase. And the wealth gap increase. as you can see, it's headed to a fall eventually. Okay, it's headed to a fall. Because when you really just think about it logically, can you imagine the entire world's economy is based on paper? Think about that. The whole world economy is based on paper. Oh, you think you're going to get cryptocurrency? Do you know the same people that control this control that? You understand that? In fact, they control it even easier. You know why? Because that's computerized stuff. That's computerized. That's systematic. That's in a system. Easily controlled. Easily manipulated. Okay? So that there's nothing that you and I could do to beat that system. It's not built for us. It's manipulated. It's fixed. The game is rigged. It's like when you walk, if you ever walk into, and I had never had, but you ever, actually I did go in there once, but I just saw it. A casino. I was on a cruise once and I saw a casino. You walk in the casino, well, you already know the house is against you, right? Like you already know that. You got to be a sucker to understand that you're going to beat the house. They might let you get over a little bit, but the game is rigged. I mean, they're not going to lose money, right? You understand that? That's how the whole world system is operating. Okay? It's all operating like that. Now, again, we have to understand, though. You see, we can get caught up in this here. But you got to understand the game is not about that for the people at the top, especially for the devil himself. He don't care about the money. He got all of us scrambling for that. He don't care about that. The object for the people at the top is power. And the ultimate power for a God is to be worshiped. To have people worshiping you. And look, it happens every day right in front of us. People have what they call fans, right? Everybody, you know, right? So you have a singer, dancer, a basketball team, whatever, and you got fans. That's a small object lesson for the overall scheme of what's going on. Now, we want to talk about how this works right now in prophecy, because that's where we care. That's where we are. That's where we are. You understand? So why I brought up Ephesians to start us off is because you got to understand this is higher than money. It's higher than land. It's higher than any physical asset. It's spirit and worship, spiritual wickedness in high places. This is a spiritual war, and the powers of the spiritual war are way infinitely higher than anything you could see and touch. The sooner you understand that, the more ahead you'll be in this situation. Okay? Now, that being said, let's take a look at when the Bible talks about an abomination. What is it addressing when it talks about abomination? Okay? And it doesn't say, like, there's a difference when it says an abomination. Watch, let's look at 1 Kings chapter 10. I want to say 1 Kings chapter 11. 1 Kings chapter 11. So Solomon was king of Israel after David, his father, passed away. And we know the story of Solomon in terms of his wives. He's famous for his wives and the wisdom that he had. But we're dealing with after that, when he got to be a fool. Because Power corrupts men. There's never been a man on earth with the power of a king that's never been corrupted. David was the closest one, and even he had a man murdered to get his wife, using what? His power. Power, the Bible says, belongs to the Most High, as we just read in Psalm 62, for a reason. He's the only one that can handle it. Man can't handle power. And the man that has power, absolute power, corrupts absolutely. Remember that. That's why we who are servants of the Most High Yah don't worry about power on this earth, because he is power. And we know because of that, no matter what situations develop here, now, and in the next 10 years, that's going to get real hectic, we know who's in charge. Our God's in charge. If you don't believe that, you're going to have a problem, because some crazy things are happening now, and they're going to continue to happen. It's going to get more intense and worse as time gets on. Okay? So now, in 1 Kings chapter 11, I'm going to start at verse 1, and I'm going to go down, because really what we need here is from really down to verse 8. I'm going to start at verse 1 for context sake. Really, it's 5, 6, 7 is the big pieces we're looking for here. But for context sake, I'm going to start at verse 1 and go down to verse 8. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after other gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect with Yahweh, his Most High, as was the heart of David, his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians. Now watch carefully this wording. Verse 5. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and went not fully after Yahweh, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. Notice the word abomination in these verses is applying to a false god. All right, you see that? So in the context of which we read, the word abomination is describing a false god that Solomon was worshiping because of the wives that were worshiping those false gods. That's very important when we're talking about the abomination that causes desolation. You understand? So we're talking about a false god that's going to cause desolation. Okay? So far, right? So now let's look at Matthew 24 and let's see what Messiah was telling us about the abomination that causes desolation. And let's start in Matthew 24. Matthew chapter 24. Now, he gave many signs. Messiah was talking to his Israelite disciples. And they asked him a question about the ruin of Jerusalem. And he gave them signs about the destruction of Jerusalem. Right? And one of the signs he gave, and let's look at this in Matthew chapter 24. Now, there's parallels to what we saw here and what's going to happen with us. Obviously, there's differences because we're not in Jerusalem. The Hebrews are scattered. So now we're dealing with this as a scattered nation versus when the tribes of Judah and the southern kingdom were in the land. So we're dealing with it from a different angle, but it's still the same abomination. So let's look at it. Matthew 24, beginning at verse 1, and go down from verse 1. I'm going to go now. The verse we're talking about is verse 15. But for context, we're going to start at verse 1, and we're going to go from verse 1 down to verse 19. And Yahushua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yahushua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Now let's stop here for a second. This was amazing, tremendous surprise to the disciples. They were not expecting Messiah to come and have Jerusalem be destroyed. They were not expecting that. Although Daniel prophesied of it, they were not expecting that. The scribes were not teaching that. And when they talk about the sign of his coming and of the end of the world, what they're really dealing with is what they asked him in Acts. That's what they did, not the destruction of the planet. What they're dealing with, where he asked this question, wilt thou at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? That's what they wanted to know. They wanted to know when he was going to come as a king and destroy all these other nations and make Israel the top dog. The end of the world is what they call it. Okay. And so that's what they asked him. So now he's going to explain to them what's getting ready to happen, because he just told them Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. All right. And he told them the temple was going to be destroyed. And Yahushua answered and said unto them, verse 4, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Now, this has happened in the past, but it's going to happen more on a worldwide scale. What I mean by that, this happened in Europe to the Caucasians that received the message of the Protestants and rejected Rome. They were brought up before councils. They were put to death. They were tortured, but they weren't Hebrews. So we know that what things he's talking about here, many come saying he's Messiah and deceiving many, that's starting now. And when it says they shall come saying, I am Messiah, what they're saying is they admit that there is a Messiah. And they're using that to deceive people. Not that they themselves are saying they're Messiah, although that's going to come, he says it later. But here, people are saying, yes, this Jesus is Jesus Christ is the Messiah. He is Christ. We want to believe in him. And they're deceiving people with that. Are you seeing that? You need to join the church. Heaven or hell, what are you choosing? Are you seeing that? That's exactly what's going on. Then he said, after that, you're going to see wars, which we're about to see, and we're already starting to see. Then we get delivered up to councils. They start arresting people. This happened in the first century. This happened in the Middle Ages, and it's about to happen here. You're going to see the number 3 today. The third time. Okay? Okay, so look. Verse 10, Matthew 24:10. Then shall there many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. And because the iniquity shall abound, the love of many will wax cold. Is that not happening now? Where people, look, man, I think I could take news from any given week. You're going to see somebody kill their mother, somebody kill their father, some wife kill their husband, some husband kill their wife pregnant. You're going to see young kids shooting other young kids. You're going to see school shooting. You could take almost any week, and this is typical. Okay? It's going on right now. Let's continue. But he that shall endure unto the end, verse 13 says, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. Then shall the end come. Let me tell you something. The gospel that the Christian church is preaching is not what he's talking about here. Because if it was, we'd be done already. If it was, we'd be done already. So there is a gospel from the Bible coming that hasn't been preached yet. Hasn't been preached yet. And who's he talking to? The Hebrews. The gospel getting preached from the Hebrews. The true Hebrews. It ain't been preached yet. The ones, the Mormons sending out missionaries, or Jehovah's Witnesses, SDA sending out missionaries, that ain't the gospel. That's Christianity. God. That's not the Bible. Ain't no Christianity in the Bible. The Messiah never started any new religion called Christianity. That was different from what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were given. He never started anything that went against what Moses taught. He was accused of that, but he never did it. That's a hard saying for many people. But that's part of the great deception we're now dealing with. So let's continue. We'll see what the Messiah said. Verse 15. And when ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains, and let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Now, what was going on? Historically speaking, Caligula Caesar wanted to place a statue of himself in the temple in Jerusalem. That really happened. He was emperor until AD 41. He was only emperor a short time. The Bible called him a vile person. He was prophesied to come into existence. A vile person. Okay? And so that caused an uprising in Jerusalem, which lasted for a while. It lasted like, more than 20 years. They were going back and forth with this thing until finally Vespasian was sent out there, and him and Titus leveled the place between 66 AD and 70 AD. That's history. But it started with Caligula Caesar, who wasn't even around when it all finished out. Then came Nero, who was really crazy. But Caligula put his image in the temple. That was the abomination that make it desolate. Why? It was Roman, but it wasn't Roman Catholic now. It was Roman. It was Roman Empire. Okay? That's what caused that. Now, that was actually the second time a religious object confronted Yah's people that they were warned about. The first time was in Daniel chapter 3 with Babylon. We're about to see the third time. Daniel chapter 3. Remember Daniel 3, the great image? So in Daniel 2, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, sees this image in a dream. Remember that? He forgot the dream. And he was so mad because he called all his soothsayers, his astrologers, his psychics. And he said, I need you to tell me what I dreamt because it was important and I can't remember what it was. And they couldn't believe that this man was asking him them not only to interpret the dream that he had, but to actually tell him what he dreamt. Can you imagine that? And he was so upset that he ordered all of them be put to death. But before that could happen, a Hebrew found out about it. His name was Daniel. And he asked for time, recognizing that this came from the Most High. And the Most High showed him not only Nebuchadnezzar's dream, he showed him not only what the interpretation of the dream was, he showed him what he was thinking about before he fell asleep that day. Revealed it all to him. Nebuchadnezzar was so overwhelmed that he lit incense and made Daniel what? A god, because that's what heathen do. But the statue, the dream was this: your kingdom is going to be the head, but then there's going to come other kingdoms after yours. Yours is going to go away, and there's going to be other kingdoms after yours. And Nebuchadnezzar wasn't having that. Somebody telling him his kingdom was going to be, going away. So he created his own image. And he demanded everybody worship the image. Let me ask you something, brethren. Where in the Bible, aside from Daniel 3, do we get the combination of an image and worship and death associated with the image and worship? Where do you see that in the Bible? Come on, y'all. I'm asking a question. Some of you Bible students, come on. We go through it all the time. So tell me, where in the Bible do you see the combination of these things? An image and worship of that image and death to those who won't worship it. Where do you find that? It's in the word. That's exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Brethren, praise the Most High. Revelation 13. So wait a minute. Let's just look at that real quick before we look at Daniel chapter 3 real quick. Since we see all the same elements, you think it's coincidence you see all the same elements? Take a look at this. Revelation chapter 13. See, everybody looks at the 666. You focus on the 666 so much, you just miss the whole thing. It ain't about the 666. Notice Revelation 13. Let's see. I'm going to start at verse 15. Verse 15. Actually, wait. Let me go back to verse 11. Let me just tell you, because you don't know this. Verse 11 is talking about the United States of America. I know y'all. I have to, we're doing a Revelation study now, so we'll get to it. But Revelation 13:11 is discussing the United States of America. You don't have to believe me. But we did the Bible study on it already last year. Well, still this year, 2021. You can look that up, War Hebrew Remnant on YouTube or on the website, and you can see it. Just go through Revelation 13. You'll see it. And we're going to do it again now by the grace of the Most High. But I'm just letting you know for the sake of time. Okay, so let's start there. We're talking about the United States of America in prophecy. When you would think it would talk about U.S. in prophecy, right? So anyway, Revelation 13, beginning at verse 11, let's read down. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. You don't got to do anything else except follow what this is saying at this point. You don't have to know all this. We're going to go through all that when we study Revelation. But here's this beast, right? It says it right here. A beast rises up out of the earth. What else does it say? He exercises power. Power. There's it in power, right? He exercises power, and he exercises power that there was a beast before him that exercised it, and now he's exercising it. And not only that, listen carefully, this United States of America, it says, causes the entire planet to give worship to the beast that existed before him. It says it right there. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein, that'll be you and me, to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Right? And the Bible says in here in verse 8, same chapter, all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life. Everybody, you should not be concerned with the mark. You should be more concerned is, are you in the book of life? Because if you're in the book of life, you ain't worried about the beast or his mark or his number or anything. But if you're not in the book of life, you're going to be worshiping. Because it says it. All who dwell upon, see, this is what makes this King James Bible different from every book on planet Earth. It gives you prophecy, exact, detailed prophecy. So you can know exactly what's happening. Okay? Now, let's continue. Verse 14. Revelation 13, actually, verse 13 and 14. And he doeth great powers, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth and the side of men. Some people get confused. No confusion. What power does the United States hold that all the earth is scared of? And because of the fear, they will not mess with us. What power is that? Come on, man. Y'all know. What power is it that you can have a fool in the White House and everybody gonna do it? They're gonna speak quietly. That's right. It's called nuclear bomb. That's the fire that come out the sky. You could ask Hiroshima and Nagasaki about it. They know all about it. And now there's multiple countries that have nuclear power, but there's only one country that's actually hit the button. That's like you on the street, right? A lot of brothers can claim to have guns. I got a 22 in my trunk. I'm going to pop my trunk. But the dude that will actually do it, first of all, he ain't going to say nothing to you. Second of all, if he's done it before and everybody knows it, nobody's saying nothing to him. You right? Because he ain't got to tell you he's going to pop the trunk. He done already done it. Right? So the United States of America ain't got to tell you I'm going to nuke you. It's already done it. The only nation on the planet that has done it. So everybody know this dude is crazy. And they ain't messing with you. So it deceiveth the earth by making fire come down from heaven on the earth and the side of men. Verse 14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Watch this. Saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. They should make an image to the beast that this country is trying to impress. What about the image? Verse 15. And had power to give life unto the image of the beast. Watch. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would now worship the image should be killed. So now you got power, you got an image, and you got a death decree for those who do not do what? Worship. Are you following me so far? You think that's the first time? Daniel chapter 3. Daniel chapter 3. Let's begin Daniel chapter 3 from verse 1 down to verse 7. 7 is perfection. 1 to 7. Daniel 3, 1 to 7. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 80 cubits and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, captains, judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. You got the image? The ruler of the world set up an image. He didn't call the common people. No, he didn't call the plumbers and the electricians and the carpenters and the teachers. No, he called the rulers, the leaders of the earth. He called them to this dedication. VIP, right? Okay. Verse 4. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, that ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. So you got an image and you got worship. We need one more. Verse 6. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So now you have all the elements that we saw in Revelation 13. We have now in the situation on earth, people talking about civil war in the United States. Why? Because they're frustrated. They know it's their own cousins dogging them, but they're not going to take that blame. They're not going to take that L. No, it's because the Mexicans coming in. Problem is the blacks. They coming to they're taking our country from us. And it's really that economic wealth gaps that's affected. They're being done. Okay? And all of this is going to lead somewhere, brethren. It's going to lead somewhere. Okay? So look. Let's look at, again, Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar. You see what he did? We know what the end of the story was. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah did not bow because they was Hebrews, and they wasn't bowing because it's against the covenant. And they were delivered from the fiery furnace. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom did come to an end when his grandson brought out all of the holy vessels of the Most High and was having a party talking about worshiping gods of gold and silver and stone. And he was killed that night. Worship has something to do with everything. Let's talk about Rome, for example. In Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2. Where's all this headed, y'all? Watch. Luke chapter 2. Let's talk about history repeating itself. Luke chapter 2. Beginning at verse 1. Luke chapter 2, beginning at verse 1, going from verse 1 down to verse 2. Very important. Luke 2, 1 and 2. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. Why was that important? First of all, it shows that Caesar Augustus, the Roman emperor, was the world emperor because he can tell the world, I'm going to tax you. Also, historically speaking, what did he do? He had now all this land. He had all of this territory he was trying to cover. So he had to make sure he could keep it. How did he do that? He had one of the first standing armies of that era. Like he had armies that was large enough to cover the whole empire. Well, you need money for that, right? So that's why you have money. He had to tax everybody so he could pay for the soldiers, the muscle that's going to keep the kingdom under control for him. Now, eventually, they couldn't hold it. And then they did this. They reinvented themselves. They turned from the powerful Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire. And that's what Daniel, again, is telling us in Daniel chapter 7. When he talks about Rome, Rome is that fourth beast that Daniel has seen in his dream, the one that's iron. Daniel chapter 7, and it transformed. It transformed from a beast power, like a government, to a religious beast power. Let's look at it. Daniel chapter 7. Let's look at verse 7. There it is again, 7:7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now you had this fourth beast. I told you this is the Roman Empire. It's got 10 divisions. The original Roman Empire had 10 divisions until the transformation came. What happened? Verse 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. A little horn that spoke a lot of mess. What happened? The original 10 divisions of the Roman Empire became 7. Why did it become 7? You had these barbaric Germanic Yafet tribes. Each of them worshiped their own gods. But when the Roman Catholic Church came into existence, and that started what we know to now as Christianity, when it began its power in the 6th century, you had some of these Germanic tribes saying, ho, 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 don't come at us with this Christianity. We got our own religion that we've had for generations. We don't want nothing to do with this. Rome wasn't having that. So in 508, you had the Goths. Y'all heard of Gothic, right? The term Gothic, that comes from a time period in Europe. And you had 2 tribes, 2 barbaric tribes that were part of that time period, Ostrogoths and Visigoths. Then you had this other tribe that was barbaric also, who started also in North Africa and went into Italy, called Vandals. Italy, Portugal, and Spain, Vandals. These resisted the power of the Catholic Church that was now established in the 6th century. It started with Constantine in the 4th century, but now you got 2 centuries, it's developed, it's big, and it wants power. And these 3 empires said no. So then the French king and other nations fought on behalf of Rome, because it don't have its own army, and took 30 years, but they overcame all 3 of those powers and subdued them. And y'all know the Vandals was black, right? Y'all know that, right? That the Vandals was made up of some Hebrews, and they were subdued. Okay? Then, because of that, in the 8th century, these people in Europe decided, we'll take up that religion. They were Ashkenaz. They came from a place called Khazaria. And they said, that religion we're going to call Judaism. All history. Okay? So, they started off as an empire that was military. They ran out of money. Couldn't contain the empire that way. So they went and they changed it to a religious sense, just like Nebuchadnezzar did. So now where are we headed, brethren? Don't take heart. The Bible's already shown. Isn't this book wonderful? You got to do is read it now. Guidance of the Father's Spirit. The Father Yah's Spirit will guide you through here, through our wisdom and righteousness that's given in Messiah. And you will get all of this. So where are we headed now? We got economic inequality, crime at an all-time high. Right? And the Bible says that Rome is ruling in secret. Like, you're not paying attention to them. And so the United States is spending money to keep military power in 150 different countries. And they keep printing money, but eventually it's not going to help them. They know it. They know that. And they're trying to reduce populations. I'm not going to say how. I think y'all can figure that out. They're trying to reduce populations of brown people so that they can maintain control. I think y'all can figure out how they're doing that. We're seeing it right now. At the end of it, though, what's going to come out? A religious power. Let me just tell you. The image, the beast is the Roman Catholic Church. The image is Christianity. That's the image. You got all of these different members. Says she's the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. How many different Christian denominations you got? How many? Can I say 200? And I think I'm being conservative, right? But y'all know the major ones. You got the Baptists, the Pentecostals, the Lutherans, right? The Anglicans, right? Episcopals, Orthodox, Greek, Ethiopian. You got all these different ones. SDA, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's not even including the non-Christian ones that accept Christianity, like the Baha'i movement. That's all the whores of Rome. And not just that, there's also Islam, there's also Judaism. You're going to see a religious revival. That's what's coming. And all the world is going to be with it. You're already starting to see it slowly in Congress, in the Senate. You're already seeing it. Everybody's professing Christianity. And then they're tolerating people that are professing Islam. And and then of course you have the Ashkenazi with the Judaism in the middle of all that too. They're all working together. Don't you think they're not? Even if some of them don't, some of them are not conscious of what's happening. They're just pawns in this game. Remember now, we're dealing with what? Spiritual wickedness in high places. It's a chessboard to them, and they're playing the game, and most people don't realize they're pawns in the game. Okay, most of the people don't know. Bible shows us though. So right now, this is being stretched, right? They're coming up with cryptocurrencies and euros and everything, trying to keep it out there, trying to keep the empire together, but it's hard. Financially, it's impossible. We've seen it already. Rome tried it, failed. Babylon tried it, failed. Okay? Now it's Holy Rome's turn. And that's the last one. The abomination that makes it desolate. Because they're going to push this thing, this whole organized religion thing, to the point where everybody's going to be on board. It's already happening. And the ones that are not on board are going to be looked upon with suspicion, like terrorists. And when you decide you're not going to be involved with these organized religions, that you're just going to follow the Bible, you become like a terrorist cell. You're not going to have a building. You think they're not going to let you have the building. You might have one temporarily, but they're going to take it. You're going to end up in your apartment, in your houses, in wilderness areas, in your beaches, in suburbs, in different countries, and you can't even tell anybody what you're doing. They're already doing that in some countries now. It's coming down to that. Simply, and I'm not talking about bombing anything. I'm not talking about getting no guns. I'm not talking about poisoning anybody or Jim Jones in anybody. I'm just talking about following this book. That's all. And listening to what it's saying. And that's enough to get us in trouble. That's where we are right now. And the powers that be are trying to gain more power. They never have enough. You would think, right, that if somebody say, I'm going to gift you $1 billion. $1 billion, what is that? That's 1,000 million. It's a lot of money, right? I'm going to gift you $1 billion. You would think, man, you got enough money to do whatever you want to do. You can end hunger in many places. But to these people, that's not enough. The devil wants total control, not only of dollars, not only of assets, not only of real estate, of minds. He wants total control of all our minds and all the spirits within our body. He wants total control. And for the most part, he already has it. For the most part, he already has it. And those of us that think he doesn't, you're going to be tested. See, all of us, brethren, are going to be tested. There's going to come a day where you're going to have to stand on the truth. And you're not going to be, because we're living at that time. We're the children that are living at the end right now. We're not talking about no future generations. Forget that. We're the generation. And now the stakes are going to be made plain. They have to be. Why? Because you're going to have to consciously choose to go against the covenant of Yah. You're going to have to consciously choose to go against it. And your conscience is going to let you know. You're not going to be deceived. You're going to know what you're doing. That's the mark of the beast. Do you think them people that stood out there with Nebuchadnezzar's image that day, when they were told the Baal, didn't know what they were doing? Do you think that they might have all had their own gods and their own styles of religion? Sure they did. But only 3 did not bow. And they worshiped Yah. And the reason they didn't bow was because it was a violation of the first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And the second one, thou shalt not bow down to any image. Brethren, Christianity is a graven image. It's the wood. The stone is Islam. And Judaism is this here. That's the truth about it. And all of us are going to have to choose. And you're going to have to choose one. All that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose name is not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the earth. The Bible says all, it means all. We're right here at the cusp in this whole economic situation. There is no president that's going to save us. There's no reparations they're going to give us. Only Yah can save us. And I'm telling you right now, brethren, we need to be praying. We need to be praying to the Most High for his spirit to guide and direct our paths. It's very simple. He doesn't make it complicated. Just you and him in this book right here. That's very easy. Just you and him in this book. And he will bring you through. I know it sounds simple, right? Well, wasn't Gideon delivered with only 300 men? Wasn't that simple? How about Noah? 8 people on the board of the ark. Just them. It's always simple. It's not always easy, though. You got to make a decision. Okay? Right now, the Most High in his mercy, when that sign came from Caligula Caesar died in AD 41. Okay? He died in AD 41. And so that was 29 years, or really, it was 25 years before the beginning of the destruction that became the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. So the Most High gave plenty of time, opportunity, signs for his people. He hasn't changed. Even though we don't have 25 years right now, he is now moving people. He is showing people things right now, even before we even understand what he's doing, because he knows our hearts. He knows we want to serve him. He knows we love him. He knows that if he puts the truth in front of us, we want to choose him. So a lot of times your life is being arranged by the Most High before you even know who he is. You're being sent somewhere. He's telling you, get out of here. I'm putting you over here. And you're thinking it's just you. No. He's got angels guiding you. And then he's starting to awaken his people. And the truth is getting awakened to them. Then you'll give him praise and you'll realize it's him guiding your steps. And he's already doing it right now to those of us that are listening. He's already doing it. Already doing it. And we're going to give him praise. We're going to give him praise now. We're going to give him praise then. We're going to give him praise when it's all over. And it's all over soon, brethren. Praise the Most High Yah. Let us continue to pray for each other, because he said we should love each other, pray for each other. Most Messiah taught us that from the Father, and ask him for the guidance, that we're all going to need, and we do need, for him to show us what to do. Don't try to move ahead of him. Don't think it's you. It's not you. He's going to send you places, show you things that you would not choose necessarily for yourself, but he's going to make you see. Then you got to go certain places. He's going to open up doors. You know how to say, one door closes, another door opens. That's how he's working with us. He's going to close doors. Don't fight against doors that's closed. Look at the doors that's open. Okay, and he's going to guide you through those steps, man. You're going to walk that path. Don't worry about who's with you and who's not with you. That don't matter. As long as the angel of Yah is with you, and as long as the Father is with you and the Messiah is with you, you all right. Right? No matter what. Praise the Most High. Okay? He knows what he's doing. Okay, he knows what he's doing. Let us remember these things, brethren. May the Most High bless you and keep you, really, and cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And may his light guide you in paths of truth for his name's sake. Shalom.